Part 7. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 61. This sudden change made everyone stand there in a daze. The men of the One-Eyed Dragon looked at the dead One-Eyed Dragon and looked at each other. Then they looked in the direction where the arrow came from. There should be only the butcher in that direction, right? Could it be that the butcher couldn't stand their boss, so he shot him to death? For a moment, everyone on the bridge turned their eyes to the direction of the butcher, and the butcher was also startled by the sudden arrow. The arrow flew from the direction behind him, that is, if the person who shot the arrow was him, he would be dead now. Seeing that everyone was looking at him, the butcher naturally knew what they were thinking. He, the butcher, would never take the blame, so he turned around and looked behind him. At this time, the car was closer, and it was probably clear that it was an off-road vehicle, and the figure standing on the roof with the bow gradually became clearer. The butcher found that the man holding the bow and arrow seemed to have taken out another arrow and put it on the bowstring, and he couldn't help but feel scared. The people here know that the detonator in their hands is a loose release type, but the new guy doesn't know. If he shoots an arrow at him, he will really die unjustly. The butcher quickly lay on the ground, holding the remote detonator and waving his right hand upwards, hoping that the new guy would be more open-minded and not impulsive. The butcher's wish was easily satisfied. Wang Feng, who was far away, really noticed his hand. After a careful look and thinking about it, he roughly understood the function of the detonator. He broke out in a cold sweat at that time. Fortunately, this guy was smart, otherwise his arrow might have ruined the people on the opposite side. Wang Feng found that there was something going on here from a distance, so he activated the Sky Eye. When he saw the situation here, Wang Feng originally planned to shoot the first arrow at Lu Feng, but he saw that Duan Lei was sitting in an armored vehicle and there was no sign of being held hostage, so he hesitated for a moment. At this time, the One-Eyed Dragon pointed at the convoy and shouted a few words. Wang Feng knew the two buses, and he also saw Taizu sitting in the car behind him, looking at the One-Eyed Dragon with spitting fire in his eyes. He was not willing to be polite, so the unlucky One-Eyed Dragon died inexplicably under Wang Feng's arrow. And Wang Feng's second arrow was the butcher he chose last, because the situation at the scene was very clear. He was the only one blocking the middle of the bridge, and he was obviously a robber. Who else should he shoot? Fortunately, Wang Feng hesitated at the time, otherwise the butcher might have been shot to death before he lay down, and the bridge would probably have ceased to exist. Duan Lei looked at the butcher lying on the ground, and his heart moved immediately. He got off the armored vehicle silently and stretched out his hand to Taizu. Taizu understood and quickly threw the cigarette box to Duan Lei. Duan Lei grabbed the cigarette box with his left hand, and then ran towards the butcher, while making a downward cutting gesture with his right hand to the butcher. Wang Feng saw it clearly, and swung his right hand quickly, and 3 arrows flew towards the butcher with a whistle. The butcher was lying on the ground, and the distance was too far, so he couldn't see Wang Feng's movements clearly. However, the arrows didn't fly over for such a long time, and he must have seen the detonator in his hand. When he was rejoicing, he suddenly saw 3 black spots flying towards him. He was so scared that he hurriedly got up from the ground. Puff! Puff! It was too late. 3 arrows penetrated the butcher's body in a shape of a Chinese character, nailing him to the ground. The butcher's waving right hand suddenly loosened, and the detonator flew out of his hand and flew out of the bridge. Seeing this scene, everyone on the bridge couldn't help but feel nervous, and their eyes were fixed on the detonator in the air. Duan Lei had also arrived at this time. He shouted and flew out. His body flew out of the bridge with the detonator, and he grabbed the detonator in mid-air. Xiao Lei, Brother Lei, Lu Feng, Taizu, and Yunfei were immediately anxious and hurried to the bridge. Only Wang Feng, who was far away, breathed a sigh of relief. Due to the angle, he could just see Duan Lei holding the bridge pier with one hand and swinging in the air. Although the others were also very nervous, they did not dare to step onto the bridge. Who knows if the bridge will suddenly blow up? Wouldn't they die without a burial place at that time? Although they would have to face endless zombies if the bridge blew up, the zombies had not come yet, so it was good to live a little longer. Wang Feng looked at Lu Feng strangely. At this time, he still had his sky eyes turned on, so he could naturally see the anxious expression on Lu Feng's face. This concern should not be fake, and now he was in the front. Duan Lei could not see him under the bridge, and Taizu and Yunfei could not see him behind him, and Lu Feng should not know that he had sky eyes, so the tension and concern he showed now should be from the heart. Haha. Interesting. Wang Feng held a bow in his left hand and an arrow in his right hand, gently rubbing his chin with his hand. It seems that our Fenglai team has grown stronger again. Lu Feng ran to the bridge and saw Duan Lei hanging under the bridge. He was relieved and quickly reached out to pull Duan Lei up, then stared at him and said, "You really dare to jump? Didn't you say that you won't die if you jump down?" Duan Lei looked at the detonator in his hand that was pressed again, and smiled with relief. "I just said that, and I didn't really jump down," Lu Feng retorted. "I didn't really jump down. And if I let this thing fall down just now, it would be beyond the interference range of this, and the bridge would be lost." Duan Lei took out the cigarette box in his pocket, bit out a cigarette, and then threw the cigarette box to Taizu. "Close it." Taizu took it and tore open the cigarette box, took out a small black cylinder from it, looked at the detonator in Duan Lei's hand, pressed a small dot on the top of the cylinder, and the red dot on the cylinder that was flashing non-stop immediately went out. "Okay, hurry across the bridge and tell those guys to maintain order. Women and children go first, men second, and enhancers last." Duan Lei looked back at Wang Feng, who was rushing over, and said, "Okay," Lu Feng agreed, then waved his hand and called Taizu and Yunfei, saying, "Let's go. You go drive, I'll convey the deputy captain's order," and said he looked at Duan Lei jokingly. Duan Lei rolled his eyes at him, and Lu Feng laughed and left. "Not good," Lu Feng suddenly shouted, and then ran forward at a high speed. It turned out that Fatty Sun and others who followed Hokan here saw that Hokan was dead, so they each had their own ideas. Since the butcher blocked the way just now, they did not do anything, just watching the development of the situation. Just now, the butcher was shot and killed by Wang Feng at a super long distance, and then Duan Lei flew to receive the remote control. Lu Feng and others all ran to rescue Duan Lei, and even Tang Haoshan's group ran to the bridgehead, but after reaching the bridgehead, they hesitated for a moment and did not go up the bridge, so only Shen Yishan and her daughter were left on the armored vehicle. Wang Feng stood in the car, and Fatty Sun and others saw it. They were naturally familiar with this figure. If it weren't for this figure, maybe they would have become zombies now, but given the performance of these people, this lifesaver at the time would probably not be very friendly to them now. So Fatty Sun looked at the armored vehicle in front of him, whispered a few words to the people around him, and then they swarmed onto the armored vehicle and climbed up. Shen Yishan was originally staring at the bridge nervously. She also saw Duan Lei fall off the bridge. She was still very grateful to this lifesaver and naturally didn't want him to get into trouble. She was relieved when she saw Duan Lei being pulled up by Lu Feng. It was at this time that she noticed some strange sounds in the car, so she looked at the surveillance screen and found that more than a dozen people were trying to climb onto the armored vehicle. Duan Lei did not cover the top cover when he jumped off the armored vehicle, so Fatty Sun and his team planned to enter the armored vehicle from there. Although there was a switch to close the cover in the cab, Shen Yishan didn't know it. Fortunately, he had not turned off the armored vehicle. At this time, Shen Yishan did not hesitate to step on the accelerator and started the armored vehicle. At the same time, she desperately honked the horn to attract the attention of Duan Lei and his team, but Fatty Sun had already arrived at the shooting position. He jumped in without saying a word. Swoosh, an arrow pierced Sun's head the moment he jumped into the carriage. Sun fell into the carriage without a sound and collapsed inside. His eyes were still looking at the ceiling of the carriage with greed. It turned out that Wang Feng had also seen what was happening here. He knew Sun, and when he saw that this guy wanted to steal his armored vehicle, how could he be polite? He fired 3 arrows directly, one shot Sun to death, and the other 2 arrows shot down the other 2 people brought by Hokun who were close to the shooting position. At this time, Tang Haoshan had also reacted. Because they were at the bridgehead, the armored vehicle was hitting them. Without Tang Haoshan's order, everyone dispersed to both sides. Tang Haoshan shouted and jumped onto the armored vehicle. The car kicked off the people on the roof one by one. After doing all this, Tang Haoshan also jumped off the armored vehicle. Just kidding, the person coming from a distance can be confirmed to be Duan Lei and his group. And although the people have not arrived yet, and even their appearance is not clear, the butcher, the best among the second-level enhancers, was shot to death without even a chance to dodge. In addition, the fat man's son just now, anyone with a little brain would not think of trying his archery. Such a strong guy, Tang Haoshan didn't want to be thought of as wanting to rob the car and become his target, so he cleaned up the people in the car and quickly jumped off to avoid misunderstandings. At this time, Lu Feng also arrived, and he nodded to Tang Haoshan, "Thank you." "No need to thank you, after all, you killed the butcher, and I owe you a favor." Tang Haoshan smiled at Lu Feng in a friendly manner. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 62. When Shen Yishan saw Lu Feng, she quickly stopped the car, then looked back, and happened to see Fatty Sun's glaring eyes. After confirming that Fatty Sun was dead, Shen Yishan finally breathed a sigh of relief. Now Lu Feng is outside, so there is no need to worry about the safety outside, and the person inside is also dead, which means that he is really safe. Duan Lei also walked over at this time. His right thumb was still pressing on the red button. Now he was just like the butcher. As soon as he let go, the Black Dragon Bridge would rise to the sky, so Tang Haoshan looked at him. His eyes were somewhat strange. Duan Lei saw Tang Haoshan's eyes and immediately understood his concerns. He shook his head and said with a smile, "Don't worry. I'm not a butcher, and I won't use this to blackmail you into doing anything. I'm just keeping this so that after we all get over, the bridge was blown up and the zombies were left here." Tang Haoshan also felt that he was too cautious, and shook his head and chuckled, "Haha. Mainly because I am too nervous. I hope you won't get more nervous later." Wang Feng had jumped out of the car and came behind Duan Lei. He happened to hear Tang Haoshan's words, so he spoke. "What's wrong?" After hearing Wang Feng's words, Duan Lei knew that Wang Feng must have discovered something. "The tide of corpses is coming." Wang Feng's answer was simple, but it shocked everyone around him. "How much longer?" Duan Lei asked. "No more than an hour." Wang Feng looked at the crowd gathered on the bridge, his face a little gloomy. Duan Lei frowned when he heard that it was less than an hour. He knew very well that 1 hour was definitely not enough time for these people to cross the bridge, and they had to set aside some time to blow up the bridge, otherwise if let the zombies cross this bridge, and what awaits them will be an endless run. "Have you all heard? The zombies are now less than an hour away from us. In order to allow more people to cross the bridge, I hope everyone will act together to maintain order across the bridge and let women and children pass first." Duan Lei shouted to the crowd around him. "Why should I listen to you? I'm going to go there first. You guys hurry up and get your cars out of the way. Don't block the road." A tall and thin guy shouted in the crowd. Without saying a word, Wang Feng nailed an arrow directly between his eyebrows. The guy fell to the ground without saying a word. "Who has any opinions? Hurry up." "I'm in a hurry," Wang Feng said indifferently. "What a fool. He kills people if he doesn't listen to you. Are you still unreasonable? He doesn't have many arrows, so I don't believe he can shoot all tens of thousands of us to death. Let's go together." Before the guy could finish speaking, Wang Feng also gave him an arrow for free on his head and sent him back to his grandma's house. Next, Wang Feng's voice was as cold as 10,000 years of black ice, without a trace of human emotion. The murderous aura permeating his body made Duanlei, Lu Feng, and Tang Haoshan around him shiver. All the enhancers at the bridge remained silent at this time. Those who were killed by Wang Feng just now were an ordinary person and a first-level enhancer, but this is not the most important thing. When Wang Feng killed the first person, it was okay. It is said that not many people paid attention to Wang Feng's movements, but when he killed the second one, these enhancers were all looking at Wang Feng. They only saw Wang Feng's right hand swaying on the bowstring, and an arrow flew out like lightning. Although the first-level enhancer had been guarding Wang Feng when he spoke, he still didn't have a chance to dodge. Lost his life. These enhancers weighed it themselves. Even the third-level enhancers could not guarantee that they could avoid Wang Feng's bow and arrow, so they all wisely kept their mouths shut. These strengtheners were all silent, and no one else dared to speak. There was a strange silence on the bridge. Duanlei looked at Wang Feng, who stood proudly in the wind with a cold face, and sighed in his heart. Wang Feng had changed. If it were him before, he might have tried to persuade these people to cooperate with him, but now he simply took action directly. Suppress any opposition directly. I have to say that this is the best way, because sometimes, the more you reason with people, the more others will think you are easy to bully, and in this situation, if you can't control it even a little bit, you will lose control. If someone rushes to the bridge forcefully, it will directly trigger a large-scale riot, and everyone behind will rush to the bridge. Under the threat of death, human beings can easily lose their minds. Duanlei shudders when he thinks about the scene of tens of thousands of people swarming across the bridge. In that case, at least more than half of the people will not die in the mouths of zombies, but will because of themselves losing life by being pushed and trampled by the same kind. In the silence, Qiu Jian, Chen Shaoan, Sha, and me also got out of the car and ran towards Wang Feng. Their footsteps were particularly clear in this somewhat silent environment. Wang Feng heard the footsteps. He didn't look back, he knew who was coming. After taking a breath, Wang Feng was about to speak when he suddenly frowned and flashed into the crowd like lightning. Then he returned to the same place again, only holding a turban on his head and still holding onto his hand. A middle-aged man with a gun. What did he say to you just now? Wang Feng asked someone in the crowd with a cold look on his face. He told us, let us be prepared, and when he yells, we will. The man being stared at by Wang Feng swallowed his saliva and said tremblingly, just shoot into the crowd, and then sneak across the bridge in the chaos and flee for our lives. When this man said this, the people around him were immediately furious. If Wang Feng hadn't caught this guy and let them carry out their plan, they might have died inexplicably under their guns, especially the people around these guys, who looked at the guy in Wang Feng's hand with fire in their eyes. Wang Feng looked at the pale guy in his hand, and suddenly a devilish smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Then he looked back at Qiu Jian and others who were standing behind him, and threw the man in his hand in front of them, deal with him. Qiu Jian and Chen Shaoan looked at each other. Before they decided who would take action, a thin figure suddenly rushed out, stretched out his hand and touched the neck of the middle-aged man who fell to the ground, and a fountain of blood spurted out immediately. This figure was Wang Mi, the leader of the Shalu Mi trio. After killing the guy who tried to create chaos by killing people, he grabbed his body and threw him into the turbulent river under the bridge. Plop, the body of the middle-aged man splashed on the water, and was immediately swallowed by the surging river, disappearing in the blink of an eye. After Wang Mi did all this, his expression did not change at all, and he returned to his original position with a calm face. Wang Sha and Wang Lu beside him also stood quietly behind Wang Feng as if nothing had happened, and said nothing. The performance of these three children made the people around who saw all this stand on end. In the end times, they had seen people killing people, and even saw a lot of them, but a child who looked only about 6 years old could kill people and abandon the body in public like this, and his expression did not fluctuate at all. Even Chen Xiaoan and Qiu Jian, who came with Xiaolumi, looked at San Xiao with a strange look. They moved to the side without leaving any trace, and kept a distance from San Xiao. Wang Feng glanced at San Xiao calmly, then turned to the crowd at the bridgehead and said coldly, "I think you all know that a terrifying zombie tide is approaching us. Everyone present wants to survive, but if we all run for our lives, I can guarantee that before the zombie tide arrives, we will suffer heavy losses, and only 1 in 10 will survive." Looking at the silent crowd, Wang Feng continued, "Now, I will command the retreat. Everyone get off the bus. After that, women and children will cross the bridge first. Men, gather the supplies in your camp into several cars and drive to the other side of the bridge. Use the remaining vehicles to build a line of defense, and then pile up some stones and trees. Qiu Jian, Xiao Wen, and Tai Zhu, the 3 of you drive 3 buses back along the road to rescue those who are left behind. Survivors, try to take all the living people with you. You should know that there are not many living people now. Leaving them will only strengthen the zombie team and will not benefit us at all. Liza, you park the armored vehicle on the other side of the bridge. Before the women and children have crossed, if you find any male over the age of 15 crossing the bridge, kill him directly. Don't ask why. Kill him. You 3 will assist him." All the enhancers turned back. "Let's stop the zombies together, delay their speed, and buy time for those crossing the bridge. That's it. Everyone, do as I say. If you have different opinions or are unwilling to do so, please raise them immediately. I can try to correct your mistakes." After Wang Feng finished speaking, his eyes swept coldly at the crowd. Everyone was silent. Just kidding. They all saw how Wang Feng corrected other people's mistakes. Naturally, no one was willing to step forward. They all looked at each other. "Ask. You will go with us to stop the zombies, right?" Tang Haoshan hesitated, but still asked. Wang Feng looked at Tang Haoshan. Just now, when Duan Lei fell under the bridge, Tang Haoshan had tried to come up to save him. Later, he jumped onto the armored vehicle and kicked off the guys who tried to rob the vehicle. He saw all of this. Wang Feng suddenly smiled. When he smiled, his previous coldness and murderous aura disappeared instantly, and the sunny boy was back. "I will be the last person to pass this bridge," pointing to the Black Dragon Bridge under his feet. Wang Feng looked at Tang Haoshan and promised solemnly. "You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 63. Looking at Wang Feng's expression, Tang Haoshan suddenly laughed, "Ha ha ha ha. Okay. I'll do it with you." Then he turned around and shouted. Everyone in the Sanhe camp got off the bus, and the women and children crossed the bridge immediately. "It's a man's, just do what this brother says, park the car without supplies, come over here, let's go fight zombies, aren't they just a bunch of ugly monsters?" Following Tang Haoshan's shout, more than 3,000 people in the Sanhe camp quickly moved. It can be seen that Tang Haoshan still has a high prestige in his camp. None of these people tried to object. Of course, Wang Feng, it must be one of the factors. Everyone in Qingfeng camp will do what this little brother says. From the Red Sun camp, let's all move, according to this little brother's words. From Tianshan camp, with Tang Haoshan taking the lead, the leaders of other camps also began to command their own camps. Tang Haoshan's camp was considered a large camp in Heilonghe city, and it was very powerful. In addition to Tang Haoshan, a third-level enhancer, there were 2 other camp leaders. A second-level enhancer, and more than 20 first-level enhancers. Now seeing that even Tang Haoshan is on Wang Feng's side, other camps will naturally have no objections. The whole crowd started to move for a while, and some women and children had already started to cross the bridge first. These women and children naturally, they were in the two cars of Tai Zhu and Yunfei. Following Wang Feng's order, Tai Zhu drove the first bus onto the bridge and drove towards the opposite side, because they were actually two buses in total, and almost all the supplies were in this bus, and the passengers were all women and children, so we just drove through. Yunfei asked everyone in his car to get out of the car and cross the bridge on foot. He drove the car back along the same route to pick up the survivors who were left behind. Lu Feng also quickly directed the survivors in the Taikang camp. First vacated two buses and gave them to Qiu Jian and Chen Shaoan, asking them to follow Yunfei back to pick up the people. Lu Feng himself directed the survivors of the Taikang camp to gather the supplies and transport them to the other side. At the same time, he asked some women and children to walk across the bridge, and drove all the other empty vehicles to the back of the crowd, preparing to build a barrier that could stop the zombies. Line of defense. Everyone in the other camps has followed suit. At this time, no one dares to jump out and take the lead. Wang Feng's thunderous methods have told them that whoever jumps out will die. This cold young man will never tell you that. In principle, his bow and arrows are his principles. Looking at the busy but somewhat orderly crowd around him, Duanlei suddenly felt a little funny. In fact, what these people are doing now is the best solution to this crisis. Only in this way can we minimize the risk. Human loss. However, this method is not implemented through everyone's deliberation, or the minority obeys the majority, which humans consider to be the most fair and democratic method, but is implemented through the use of force to suppress it. This cannot but be said to be the tragedy of mankind. The crowds of people supporting each other on the bridge, the men wielding various tools to cut down trees on both sides of the road, and the fortifiers shouting slogans and building a wall with cars and stones, all of which made Duanlei feel that this was indeed not the case. A world that makes sense. In fact, power is the greatest truth at any time. Whether you are justified or not, as long as others cannot defeat you, then what you say is true. This has not changed at all before or after the end of the world. You three, follow him carefully. No matter what he says, you must obey him. Do you understand? Wang Feng turned to Shami Sangziao and said. Okay, Wang Mi nodded in agreement. Duanlei looked at the third child and then at Wang Feng. How old are they? 9 years old, Wang Feng replied. Duanlei took a breath. He originally thought that these three guys who looked like children were dwarfs or some special enhancements, but he didn't expect that they were really still children. He thought of Wang Mi's nonchalant attitude when he killed someone just now. Attitude, he couldn't help but look at Wang Feng, but thought that now was not the right time to chat, so he swallowed his words. Looking at Duanlei's expression, Wang Feng knew what he was thinking. He patted him on the shoulder and said, "We'll talk about this later. I'll take those guys to meet my old friends first. You are here, maintain order." After saying that, Wang Feng turned around and walked towards the strengtheners who were building walls in the distance. Just as Wang Feng walked off the bridge, he stopped again, turned around and looked at Duanlei, and said solemnly, "Lazy eye. If someone makes trouble, don't show mercy." Duanlei smiled bitterly, "Don't worry. Do you want me to brag to you that we killed more than 100 survivors who tried to rob us on the way here?" Wang Feng was stunned for a moment, then turned around and left. Looking at Wang Feng's back, Duanlei suddenly smiled. Then he looked at Shami San Xiao and asked, "Can you tell me your names?" The three children all stood there, looking at Wang Feng's leaving figure, without answering Duanlei's words. Duanlei thought for a while, shook his head and smiled bitterly. "It seems that you are only talking to that madman, okay. Now talk to I'll come." After saying that, Duanlei took the lead in walking towards the armored vehicle. He jumped directly onto the roof of the vehicle and sat in the shooting position. Then he said to the killer Sang Xiao who followed him and jumped onto the armored vehicle, "You guys can go into the compartment and find some weapons, but don't disturbing the people inside." The three boys shook their heads at the same time, indicating that they did not need weapons. Doomsday shrugged upon seeing this and said nonchalantly, "Okay. It's up to you." After saying that, he patted the roof of the car and said, "Sister Shen, drive the car to the bridge over there." The armored vehicle started to move slowly, past the endless crowd of people crossing the bridge, and reached the other side. Shen Yishan followed Doomsday's order to turn the vehicle around and parked on the side of the bridge. Doomsday pointed the machine gun at the exit of the bridge, looked at the tense and orderly flow of people, and suddenly chuckled, "It's been a long time since I saw such a well-behaved person." Wang Feng came to the defensive wall that had just been built. He looked at the 2-meter-high defensive wall, which was connected end-to-end by cars, filled with stones in the middle, and formed an arc around the bridgehead. He frowned. Then he said to these strengtheners, "This is not enough, do you still have a car?" "Yes. But not many," Tang Haoshan said. "Come here, everyone," Wang Feng said immediately. Soon, more than 20 cars drove over. Wang Feng originally wanted to create a maze here based on the maze that Lu Wanting had set up with cars in front of her camp, but after thinking for a long time, he didn't think of it. There were too few vehicles and the defense line was too long, so we had to give up. After parking these cars at the gap in the defensive wall to slightly strengthen the thickness of the defensive wall, Wang Feng looked at the defensive wall and shook his head, "No. This kind of wall can resist Xiaobo's zombies, but I'm afraid it can't be used to deal with the zombie wave. It will be submerged in a few minutes. There is nothing we can do. We only have so many vehicles. Even if we allocate all the vehicles carrying supplies, it will be a drop in the bucket and will not make much difference," Tang Haoshan said. "Yes. So it's up to us next." Wang Feng looked at the enhancers around him and said, "Everyone. I know you may think I'm overbearing, but I believe that after we cross the bridge, you will understand why I did it." "I think I understand a little bit now," Tang Haoshan said, turning back and looking at the women and children crossing the bridge. Everyone looked over subconsciously, and what they saw was a scene they had never seen since the end of the world. About 20,000 women and children from more than 20 camps all gathered at the head of the bridge. There was no arguing or pushing. They walked onto the bridge in batches in order. Those who did not have their turn stood there and continued to wait. The flow of people on the bridge is very calm. Occasionally someone falls to the ground. The woman or child next to him, whether they recognize him or not, will reach out to help him up, and then walk hand in hand to the other side. The strengthener suddenly became quiet, and even the men who were stuffing stones and tree trunks into the gap between the two cars gradually put down their things and looked in the direction of the bridge, looking at this rare thing in the apocalypse. A peaceful and warm scene. Soon, more and more people noticed their movements, stopped what they were doing, and looked towards the bridge. Time seemed to have stopped at this moment. Both men and strengtheners were all staring blankly at the bridge. "Orderly Q." "Ah!" A middle-aged man suddenly fell to his knees and let out a long howl, tears rolling down his cheeks. The people around him looked at this middle-aged man silently. Needless to say, they knew that this man must have lost his wife and children in this terrible apocalypse. He is definitely not the only such person here. Maybe even, probably the majority. "Everyone," Wang Feng looked at the middle-aged man who was crying bitterly, and shouted loudly, "Have you seen it clearly? These people who are crossing the bridge all belong to the vulnerable groups in this apocalypse. From this the day the damn end comes, they are struggling between hunger and death. No matter which camp they are in, they are regarded as a burden, especially those who have lost their husbands or fathers in the last days. Because they cannot go out to fight and look for supplies, they will only consume the limited food. A friend of mine told me that women and children are the hope of the world. I didn't understand it before, but seeing the scene in front of me, I understood. He was right. These people are indeed the hope of the world. Because they still retain the most basic thing of human beings, humanity. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 64. Wang Feng looked around at the silent crowd around him, and continued, "Does the scene now look like before the end of the world? You can imagine, if I didn't let women and children pass first, but let everyone go by themselves, how many people are left?" There was still silence among the crowd, and many people lowered their heads, not daring to meet Wang Feng's eyes. "The result of my calculation is," Wang Feng pointed at the bridge, 10% of them will die in the Black Dragon River because they were squeezed in by some of us, and 50% will 35% of those who died under our trampling will be abandoned on the bridge and become food for zombies, which means... Wang Feng looked at the women and children who were still crossing the bridge and said, "Of the more than 20,000 of our kind, there will only be about 1,000 left. What do you think?" Lu Feng patted Wang Feng's shoulder lightly, sighed softly, looked gloomy, and said nothing. "Everyone. I don't have time to say more now, although I have already said a lot at this point." Wang Feng smiled self-deprecatingly. "Did you see their peaceful expressions? The vast majority of them should be everyone already knows our current situation and knows that there is a terrifying zombie wave coming behind us. But they don't have much fear, because they saw our actions, knew that we were buying time for their evacuation, and knew that we men finally remembered our responsibilities. We men are the backbone of the world. Now the world is gradually collapsing. Whether we can stand it up again depends on whether we can live like human beings and men. Now, if you are not a strengthener, stay here on the defensive wall. Try to get as many trees as possible and throw them in front of the defensive wall to create some obstacles for the zombies. When you see the zombie army, immediately retreat behind the wall and delay as much as possible. Everyone over there will evacuate in batches as soon as they cross the bridge, remember. We just need to delay the zombies, don't fight them. All strengtheners, follow me. We are fast. Go to the front to stop the zombies. Please pay attention to safety. As long as we can delay the zombies' progress, try to protect yourself. I can't guarantee how many of us will survive this time, but what I said before still stands. I will be the last one to cross that bridge." After finishing speaking, Wang Feng flashed and shot away in the direction of the corpse tide. Then, his last words came to everyone's ears, "If you really don't want to, you can go to the bridge and wait now. Cross the bridge." Lu Feng looked at Wang Feng's back and suddenly burst out laughing. Then he chased after Wang Feng in the direction he left without leaving a word. Tang Haoshan and Lu Feng rushed out almost at the same time. Their hearty laughter echoed in the air and lingered for a long time. The remaining strengtheners looked at me and I looked at you. Suddenly they all laughed, and they all laughed loudly, as if they had encountered some great event. Then, these people rushed to chase after the three people in front of them. When they left, it seemed that what was waiting for them was not a terrifying tide of corpses, but a rare treasure. As if they had been infected, the strengtheners had just set off, and laughter began to spread among the remaining crowd, and it became louder and louder, accompanied by everyone's garbled words. "Ha ha ha. It's been half a year, but today I feel like I'm a human being. I'm a man. NND. I used to be a tough guy, but why did I become a coward in this damn apocalypse? Damn it. That's nonsense. You're the only one who's still scolding me? Why did you take a detour when you saw me before the end of the world? Okay. Be cruel. When the zombies come, you will be the last one to run away. Don't be so humming stupid. Can't you stop your mouths by cutting down trees? Nonsense. Cutting down trees is not chewing trees. Why do you keep your mouth shut? Wouldn't it be faster if you gnaw and chop at the same time? Ha 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 ha. What a great idea. The remaining men were chatting and laughing while setting up obstacles. A long-lost atmosphere quietly spread. As for the words Wang Feng left before leaving, "If you really don't want to, you can go to the bridge and wait." Now crossing the bridge, no one seemed to hear this. Wang Feng was running along the road at full speed at this time. He had already seen 2 buses coming back to pick up people. When he got up, he saw that it was Chu Jian and Chen Xiaoan. Their buses were already full of people. He found out after asking Yunfei asked them to go back and see the person off, while he continued to pick up the person along the way. Wang Feng nodded. Yunfei was right, because he was the only one who knew the road here best, so he asked the 2 of them to drive the car directly to the bridge, and then left the car behind while people came to support them. After taking care of the 2 of them, Wang Feng nodded. After that, Wang Feng flew forward again. Because Wang Feng was extremely fast, it only took him less than 10 minutes to catch up with Yunfei. At this time, Yunfei was in a bit of danger because the zombie wave was already within his sight, but Yunfei still wanted to take more steps. The zombies snatched some survivors from their mouths, so they were still heading towards the zombie tide. The survivors along the road were constantly being swallowed up by the tide of corpses. The shrill screams mixed with the roars of the zombies made the survivors who were unable to escape even more desperate. Some simply lay down on the ground, staring straight at the sky, waiting quietly. The arrival of zombies. The appearance of Yunfei rekindled the hope of survival for some survivors. They dragged their tired bodies and ran towards the bus with all their strength. However, they were really exhausted, and their speed was indeed not much faster than the zombies. Wang Feng saw the crisis and took a few quick steps. He jumped onto the top of the bus and shouted, "Stop! Turn around!" Then he drew his bow and arrows, and swung his right hand continuously. Countless arrows rained down on the zombies behind the survivors. The survivors who had a chance to catch their breath hurriedly ran towards the bus. Wang Feng looked at the number of people. There were probably less than 40 people. Even the bus driven by Yunfei could not be filled. He couldn't help but feel sad. There were more than 10,000 people who fell behind. But they only rescued 3 cars of people, with a total of less than 200 people. He continued to shoot arrows to stop the zombie tide from advancing. Unfortunately, the zombie tide was too dense. Even if Wang Feng was faster, it would be a drop in the bucket. Fortunately, there were not many survivors, and they were eager to escape, so they all got on the bus in a short time. After seeing that everyone was on the bus, Yunfei closed the door without Wang Feng's order, stepped on it hard, and the bus ran at full speed in the direction it came from. Wang Feng, who was on the roof of the bus, looked at the dense zombie tide behind the bus and thought it was not good. Originally, he thought that by concentrating the power of all the enhancers, he could at least delay the zombie tide for a while, but looking at this overwhelming zombie tide, Wang Feng knew in his heart that even if a 3rd-level enhancer came to stop the zombie tide head-on, he would probably not be able to hold on for more than 10 seconds before being swallowed by the zombie tide. It seems. I can only think of a way from you. Wang Feng raised his head, activated the sky eye, and muttered to himself while looking at the mutant zombie in the center of the zombie tide. At this time, the mutant zombie was bigger, and its nearly 3-meter giant body did not look clumsy. Its movements when walking seemed swift and neat. Its 2 giant claws like cattail leaves, each with a 5-foot-long blade, kept flashing cold light under the sunlight. The mutant zombie walked and looked around, with violent eyes, and with its body, it looked very powerful, with a look of looking down on the world. When Wang Feng's eyes fell on the mutant zombie seemed to be aware of it. He roared in the direction of Wang Feng, and 10 of the 60 or 70 enhanced zombies guarding it suddenly rushed out and ran towards Wang Feng. These enhanced zombies did not seem to regard the ordinary zombies around them as their own corpses. They jumped up and stepped on their bodies and ran forward. Many of the zombies' heads were directly stepped on by them like rotten watermelons and fell to the ground and died, while other ordinary zombies ignored them and continued to move forward. Wang Feng was shocked by the agile and swift movements of these enhanced zombies. He had encountered enhanced zombies before, but those enhanced zombies were only powerful and had strong defenses, but their movements were far less agile than these zombies. It seems that the enhanced zombies are also divided into strength and agility types like the enhancers. As for the mutant zombie, it may have more wisdom. Wang Feng drew his bow and arrows, and as he waved his arms, more than a dozen arrows flew out of the string and shot at the enhanced zombies. The mutant zombies roared again at the same time as Wang Feng shot arrows. The enhanced zombies seemed to have received instructions and dodged one after another. Some of the enhanced zombies even picked up the feather arrows thrown into the air by the ordinary zombies below. However, Wang Feng's skills are more than that. As soon as the first wave of arrows was sent out, the second wave of more than a dozen arrows followed closely and attacked the enhanced zombies. This time, even the mutant zombies did not have time to react. 7 of the 10 enhanced zombies were killed by Wang Feng in an instant. Just when Wang Feng drew his bow and prepared to kill the remaining 3 enhanced zombies, the 3 fish that had escaped by chance suddenly turned around and fled under the roar of the mutant zombies. Looking at these 3 deserters who fled from the battlefield, Wang Feng was stunned, then a sneer appeared on his lips, and then he shot more than a dozen arrows again. On the way here, he swept through 8 hunting shops along the way, swept out all the arrows in them, and put them in his own apocalypse space. Because this place is surrounded by mountains on 3 sides, these hunting shops have a full range of hunting tools, and the most are probably all kinds of feather arrows. Some hunting shops even secretly sell hunting crossbows, but for Wang Feng, bows are more convenient to use. So now Wang Feng's apocalypse space is almost full of feather arrows, with a number of nearly tens of thousands. If it weren't for the fact that it couldn't be loaded, there would probably be more. Moreover, Wang Feng found that there was another advantage to putting feather arrows in the apocalypse space, which saved him the trouble of drawing arrows from the quiver, which made his shooting speed basically reach his limit. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 65. Therefore, the quiver on Wang Feng's back is actually just for show. Wang Feng just put 25 arrows out of habit. This number was the limit of what he could launch an attack at once before. As for now, hundreds of arrows are no problem. The arrows whizzed and flew towards the escaping enhanced zombies, shooting down the 3 deserters in the blink of an eye. The mutated zombies seemed not to have expected that Wang Feng would continue to chase the 3 enhanced zombies. They couldn't help but be stunned. At the moment when the mutated zombie was dazed, 3 arrows were already attacking its face in a glyph shape. It turned out that in the wave of arrows just now, 3 arrows were aimed at this mutated zombie. The mutated zombie's 2 sharp claws quickly crossed in front of it, tightly blocking the top arrow that was aimed at its eyebrows, and the other 2 arrows aimed at his eyes hit his claws. Ding! Ding! 2 sounds of gold and iron rang out, and sparks flew everywhere. The 2 arrows deflected to both sides. The one on the left directly hit the shoulder of an enhanced zombie next to it, while the one on the right directly hit the shoulder of an enhanced zombie next to it. Pierce the head of an unlucky enhanced zombie. The mutated zombie slowly lowered its claws. It lowered its head to look at the arrow between its claws, and suddenly howled loudly. Then it used its claws hard to crush the arrow into pieces, and then roared at Wang Feng. After the roar of the mutant zombies, the shape of the zombie tide began to change. The enhanced zombies began to gather in front of the mutant zombies, blocking the front of the mutant zombies. However, because the mutant zombies were too tall, this move did not seem to have any effect. What an effect! The mutated zombies seemed to have discovered this, but this guy had some backbone and did not squat down to lower his height, of course. Maybe because it wasn't expected. The zombie tide that was originally in a straight line and moving forward began to gather in the middle, and these ordinary zombies seemed to speed up a bit, all rushing towards Wang Feng. It's just that Wang Feng is now standing on the roof of the bus. The speed of the zombies is far less than that of the zombies, and they are slowly being left behind. Wang Feng no longer shoots arrows, but just looks at the group of corpses. He is thinking about how to effectively slow down the advancing speed of the corpse tide. First of all, judging from the reaction of the mutated zombie just now, this mutated zombie should not have been a daring guy when he was alive. Maybe he was similar to Yunfei before, because after Wang Feng killed its men, the mutated zombies' the first reaction is to let other enhanced zombies protect themselves rather than avenge their little brother. And judging from the current zombies' actions, this mutated zombie seems to want to use these ordinary zombies to siege itself, and has no intention of taking action personally. Therefore, this zombie is not very courageous. It seems that after the zombie becomes wise, it's not without its weaknesses, at least it knows how to be afraid. Wang Feng was thinking when suddenly a sound broke through the air behind him. When he turned around, he saw Lu Feng and Tang Haoshan both climbing onto the roof of the car and standing behind him. "Madman! How are you? Have you fought against the zombies?" Lu Feng asked anxiously before he could stand firmly. "Well, we've already fought. It's not easy to handle. The tide of corpses is too dense. Even third-level enhancers like you may not be able to escape once they are entangled." Wang Feng shook his head gently. "No way." Lu Feng and Tang Haoshan looked at each other, feeling baffled. Although there were a large number of zombies, it was unlikely that those clumsy and slow guys would cause harm to them, right? "You two follow this car back, take the incoming enhancers along the way, take them back with you, then cut down more trees and throw them on the road to disperse these zombies, and collect long-range weapons, and then tell Lei Sun, let him drive the armored vehicle to the bridge. Open a hole in the defense wall, and block all the enhancers in the opening. Kill the zombies when they come in. Armored vehicles assist, but try to save ammunition. When everyone retreats to the bridge, the enhancers will retreat, and then the armored vehicles will cover. That's it. You go quickly." After Wang Feng finished speaking, he jumped off the bus and stood in the middle of the road holding a bow. "Go back." Lu Feng and Tang Haoshan looked at each other and said at the same time. Then they were both stunned, laughed, and said in unison again, "Then stay together." After saying that, they both jumped off the bus and came to Wang Feng. Wang Feng looked at the two of them and was about to speak when Tang Haoshan rushed to say, "I said this, lunatic, right? Ha ha. The name lunatic suits you quite well." "I said lunatic, you just stirred up our blood. I finally found the feeling of not being afraid of death. You can't just drive me back, why don't you let me kill hundreds of zombies before leaving?" "Madman, I'm telling you, we didn't swallow up your armored vehicle, so you can't trick me. Let me stay and kill some zombies. Besides, if you let those people become like chicken blood because of your words, if the strengtheners go back without even seeing the zombies, they probably won't agree." Lu Feng also joined in the fun. "Okay. Then you can stay and try. If it doesn't work, leave quickly. Remember what I just said." Wang Feng glanced at the two of them helplessly and shook his head. The zombies were not far away anyway. The two of them thought, if you want to see it, just see it. And let them see how dense the zombies are. At least after they retreat to the defensive wall, they can know how to arrange them to effectively deal with the zombies. The three of them stood in the middle of the road, waiting quietly. Then, three more third-level enhancers came, followed by second-level enhancers, and finally first-level enhancers. After all the enhancers came, the endless tide of zombies finally appeared in their sight. Hiss! After seeing the tide of zombies, all the enhancers except Wang Feng took a breath of cold air. To become an enhancer, basically everyone has countless experiences of fighting zombies. It is precisely because of this that when everyone saw the zombie tide for the first time, they felt powerless. Not to mention the number of zombies, because their purpose is not to annihilate these zombies, but to delay them. However, with such a dense zombie population, they may be surrounded by the zombie tide before they kill a few, and end up in the zombie tide. Everyone. We are here to delay the speed of the zombies, not to feed them. I think everyone knows the situation in front of us. It seems that I underestimated these zombies before. Do you see the group of zombies in the middle? The tallest one is the leader of these zombies, that is, it is controlling these zombies. Wang Feng looked around and said in a heavy tone, in this situation, I don't think it is suitable to stop the zombies anymore. There are very few of us humans. I don't want to lose any more people, no matter who he is. So, you evacuate now, I will stay and try to create some obstacles for these zombies to buy time for you. You have also seen the situation of the zombie tide, so how to arrange the defense is left to you. No. We can't, and you can't. How can you stop these zombies alone? Let's go back together. Lu Feng was the first to object. Wang Feng looked at Lu Feng, raised the bow in his hand, aimed at the zombie group and fired a rain of arrows. In a dozen breaths, Wang Feng cleared a large area of zombies opposite him, and then pulled out a dagger, flashed into the zombie group. When Wang Feng returned to his position again, a blank area suddenly appeared in the zombie group in front of him, and about 100 zombies fell in the round of attack just now by Wang Feng. After Wang Feng returned to his original position, his face was not red and he was not out of breath. He turned around and asked the stunned Lu Feng with a smile, "How is it? With my speed, there should be no problem in protecting myself, right?" The surrounding enhancers were all shocked by Wang Feng's sharp performance on the spot, even the third-level enhancers were no exception, especially the two agile enhancers among these third-level enhancers. Speed has always been their greatest pride. Now, they suddenly felt that their speed was just like the difference between a child and an athlete compared to Wang Feng. Wang Feng looked at the zombies getting closer and closer, waved his hand, and shouted loudly, "All right. All listen to my orders. Return to the defense wall immediately and set up defenses. I will try my best to entangle them and buy time for you. Okay. Then I'll leave this to you. Let's go." Lu Feng woke up from his dream. He looked at the zombies in front of him and shouted without hesitation, "It's useless to stay here. Let's go back and prepare." After that, Lu Feng turned around and left first. The other enhancers looked at each other, nodded to Wang Feng, and chased Lu Feng. Madman. I, Tang Haoshan, have never been submissive to anyone. Whether before or after the apocalypse, you are the first person I, Tang, admire. If you and I are still alive after this crisis, I, Tang, will follow you from now on. Tang Haoshan ran 2 steps and suddenly stopped, looking at Wang Feng with a serious face and said, without waiting for Wang Feng's answer, he nodded at Wang Feng and turned to leave. Wang Feng looked at Tang Haoshan's back, smiled bitterly and shook his head, then turned to stare at the zombies in front of him, muttering, "Yeah. Let's talk about it after this crisis, when we are all still alive." Lu Feng ran with red eyes and tried his best. After a while, he caught up with Yun Fei's bus. He jumped directly onto the roof of the bus, sat down, looked at his hands and said to himself, "Damn it. Why didn't I realize that I was so useless before?" Lu Feng was not the only one who felt this way. Almost all the enhancers were holding back their anger and running back desperately. Originally, they were all excited by Wang Feng's words and were ready to come and kill everyone. Who knew that the zombies saw it, but they didn't even dare to touch the hair and ran back, so these enhancers are now very frustrated. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 66. Only now do these strengtheners know that they are not as powerful as they thought. When the number of zombies reaches a certain level, When the zombies become organized, when the zombies no longer use that loose formation to spread out. While wandering aimlessly, I realized that I was really vulnerable to the zombies, and I didn't even have the thought of fighting them. Coupled with Wang Feng's amazing performance just now, these intensifiers felt that if Wang Feng was given enough depth, perhaps this terrifying corpse tide could be completely eliminated by Wang Feng alone. This huge gap is completely unacceptable to the enhancers. Although they are selfish and afraid of death, that was before. In the few dozen minutes since Wang Feng appeared, their mood has changed. Something called the dignity of men, the dignity of the strong, quietly emerged in their hearts and lingered on. You must do something, I'm not a wimp, this was what all the strengtheners were thinking about most at this time. Driven by this idea, these enhancers accelerated their speed. Even the slowest enhancer arrived at the defensive wall almost at the same time as the bus driven by Yunfei. Hurry! Clear a path first, and then everyone goes to chop down trees and move rocks. The more the better, NND, let's let those skeletons play hurdles, Tang Haoshan shouted at the top of his lungs. Okay. Have fun with them, the enhancers responded one after another. Lu Feng came to the armored vehicle and told Duan Lei about the situation of the zombies and what Wang Feng asked him to tell Duan Lei. Duan Lei thought about it and nodded. If the density of zombies reaches that high, it's really not easy. It's easy to deal with, Lao Lu. Go and have someone collect the guns and ammunition, and then distribute them all to the strengtheners. Duan Lei looked at the crowd that had almost all passed the bridge and said, now that women and children are almost the same, we should start letting ordinary people start crossing the bridge. Go and organize it immediately. In addition to being a soldier, you have some knowledge of your own marksmanship. Except for confident people, all other ordinary people are ready to cross the bridge. All across the bridge, Lu Feng was surprised. That's right. The zombies now have a commander. Under the impact of this high-density zombie tide, ordinary people can't play any role at all and can only serve as cannon fodder. Instead of dying in vain, it is better to evacuate them all. There is only one person on the other side of the bridge. Just leave the enhanced ones, and add some ordinary people with good marksmanship to assist in the attack. Duan Lei said this, looked into the distance and sighed, oh. Try to delay it as much as possible. Lu Feng nodded, then turned around and left to arrange the arrangements. Duan Lei waited until Yunfei's car drove across the bridge, then entered the car. He first looked at Lu Qiang, who was still sleeping, and after confirming that there was nothing abnormal about him, he walked to the cab. Said to Shen Yishan, Sister Shen, you and Niunia go to that bus. This armored vehicle will leave behind for a while, and it may be dangerous. Shen Yishan looked at Niu, who was leaning on her seat and sleeping soundly. Go. Sister Shen. Niu still needs your care. You can't take her to risk. I will let Yunfei settle you down. Duan Lei saw Shen Yishan's hesitation and persuaded him. He knew that Shen Yishan wanted to repay her kindness. Moreover, after we cross the bridge, someone needs to maintain order here. You are a woman, so it is relatively easy to do this. I will let Yunfei and these 3 children cooperate with you. Okay. Take care then. Shen Yishan glanced at Duan Lei, then stood up, picked up Niu and walked out of the armored vehicle. Yunfei. Help Sister Shen find a place to settle down. After that, you stay here and maintain order here with Sister Shen. Those men will be coming soon. Tell them to behave well when you stay here. Those who don't want to obey the rules should leave. Duan Lei also followed Shen Yishan out of the armored vehicle and said to Yunfei, who was running towards him. Okay Brother Lei. I understand, Yunfei agreed, leading Shen Yishan towards the bus where he had just gotten off. Duan Lei returned to the armored vehicle, looked at Xiaomi San Xiao in the vehicle and said, you 3 just stay here and help the woman and the young man who were driving just now. The 3 little ones looked at each other and said nothing, but me in the middle shook his head slightly. Duan Lei smiled and said, I know you want to cross the bridge to find the madman, but you should remember what the madman said before he left, right? He asked you to listen to me, so you have to stay here. And letting you stay here is also for the madman's ideals. He has always wanted to build a survival base that can restore human order. These people are probably the important resources for him to take the first step. I hope you can help the madman manage it. Well, if someone makes trouble here. Duan Lei said without saying anything more, just looking at Sang Xiao with his eyes. After listening to Duan Lei's words, Sang Xiao's eyes lit up, and then Wang Mi nodded heavily to Duan Lei to express his agreement. Duan Lei breathed a sigh of relief. He actually said this just to keep these three little guys here. Duan Lei could see that these three little guys were not ordinary people, but even if the three of them were enhancers, so what? After that, they were still cannon fodder, and from the way Wang Feng looked at the three little guys, Duan Lei knew that Wang Feng intended to train these three little guys, so he couldn't let anything happen to them. As for whether the trouble Duan Lei mentioned will happen here soon, Duan Lei believed that with Wang Feng's thunderous kill when he appeared, and what he said just now, at least these guys would not be able to make any big waves in a short period of time, and there are no strengtheners here, and there is Yunfei. There shouldn't be any problems with Sang Xiao. After arranging everything here, Duan Lei slowly drove the armored vehicle through the crowd crossing the bridge to the other side. Fortunately, everyone crossing the bridge knew that the armored vehicle was used to help them fight off zombies, so they all cooperated and gave way. Road, so Duan Lei didn't waste much time crossing the bridge. After Duan Lei came over, he parked the armored vehicle at the gap left by the defensive wall on the road and moved all the ammunition for the six-wheel machine gun near the machine gun. In addition, Duan Lei also checked the two surface-to-air missiles mounted on the armored vehicle. And after confirming that they could launch normally, he waved to Lu Feng. Lu Feng was directing people to scatter the trees chopped down by other enhancers outside the defensive wall, and he quickly ran over when he heard Duan Lei's shout. Lao Lu. Find me a shooter to control this machine gun. I want to be in the cab, because the launch buttons for the two missiles on the car are in the cab. When necessary, I will launch the missiles to attack the corpses. Chao Duan Lei said to Lu Feng. Are there missiles? Lu Feng said in surprise. Are there any RPGs? No, Duan Lei shook his head. The main purpose of this vehicle is urban anti-terrorism. There is no need to carry an RPG. What a pity. Machine gunner, right? I'm here, Lu Feng shook his head and said regretfully, and then volunteered himself to be the machine gunner. To be honest, no man doesn't like this six-barreled machine gun, especially when it is a six-barreled machine gun. When the machine gun started roaring, the feeling of destroying everything was simply overwhelming. You can't. What Lu Feng didn't expect was that Duan Lei rejected him. Duan Lei looked at Lu Feng and shook his head. You are a third-level enhancer. It's a waste to be a machine gunner. Just give me someone who is braver. An ordinary person with good marksmanship and military experience will be fine. Duan Lei pointed to the direction where the zombies were about to come and said, after a while, the zombie wave arrives, you third-level enhancers will be the absolute main force, and only you can rush into the zombies and retreat unscathed. The others, even second-order estimates can't do it. It's possible, Lu Feng shook his head and smiled bitterly. You also said it's possible, which means it's possible that you can't get out, right? Ha 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 ha, Duan Lei laughed, then just try not to rush in too deep. After saying this, Duan Lei looked at the intensifiers and ordinary people who were busy chopping down trees and moving rocks. He looked back at the survivors who were crossing the bridge in an orderly manner, and said with emotion, this guy is crazy. There is really a way to twist the originally scattered survivors into a rope, which I can't do. Neither can I. No one can do it except him, because he is too strong now. Do you know why these guys are working so hard? Because they were just beaten by that crazy guy. Lu Feng also followed Duan Lei's advice, looking at. The same goes for me, 2. I was so trampled by a madman that I couldn't get up. You didn't see the zombie wave just now? I can guarantee that if we had just rushed up to stop the zombies according to the previous plan, maybe we, the enhanced ones, would none of them can come back. The density of zombies is really too great. As soon as you get close, they will definitely swamp you within a few seconds. And that crazy guy actually defeated such a dense group of zombies in 10 seconds. There was a gap, and hundreds of zombies fell under his bow, arrows and daggers, and this guy escaped without any damage. He is the only one who can do this, and we guys originally planned to go there and show those zombies how good they are, but after we went there, we watched a solo show of that madman, and then we were embarrassed. They ran back, so now these guys are holding their breath in their hearts. When Lu Feng said this, he looked up at Duan Lei and said with a smile, I dare to bet you that if these enhancers don't kill some zombies in a while, they won't leave even if you tell them to retreat. Duan Lei was stunned for a moment, then smiled, then we must also tell them that second level and lower enhancers should never go up to fight zombies in close combat. Long range shooting is enough. You third level ones should also be careful. The first one, the premise is to protect yourself. Don't worry. I will remind them of this, and all the guns and ammunition have been collected and placed behind the defensive wall. We will focus on long-range strikes in a while. As long as everyone can safely evacuate to the bridge, the mission will be completed. Yes, Lu Feng looked back at the bridge and said solemnly. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 67. At this time, Wang Feng seemed a little embarrassed. After the enhancers left, Wang Feng relied on his own speed to block the zombies several times. He also tried to change the direction of the zombies, but what frustrated him was that it seemed that the mutated zombie saw his intention. At the very beginning, the zombie wave chased Wang Feng and deviated from the main road for a certain distance. However, the zombie wave soon gave up chasing Wang Feng under the command of the mutated zombies and returned to the main road of Highway 4 to continue moving forward. No matter how provocative Wang Feng was, the zombie tide ignored him and stubbornly moved towards the bridge. Looking at the tide of corpses in front of him, Wang Feng felt powerless. The number of zombies was too much. Now if he activates the blast power and rushes into the corpse group, he may be able to kill thousands of zombies, but with the huge base of zombies is just a drop in the bucket in comparison and will not play any role. According to the current walking speed of zombies, it would take about half an hour to reach the bridge. Obviously, this time is not enough for everyone to cross the bridge. Wang Feng turned his head and looked around him. The flat terrain was clearly visible, and there was nothing that could be done. Take advantage of the terrain. Wang Feng raised his head and looked at the mutant zombies surrounded by enhanced zombies. Ever since he knew that Wang Feng's bow and arrow could pose a threat to him, the mutant zombies protected him very well, and even no longer sent out enhanced zombies. Just using these large numbers of rogues to slowly advance. Wang Feng knew that as long as he killed this mutated zombie, the crisis at hand would be resolved. However, the mutated zombie hid itself deeply in the zombie tide. If it were not for his eyes, he would not even be able to find the mutated zombie's location. After sighing, Wang Feng turned around and shot away. The most he could do if he stayed here was to kill some ordinary zombies, which would not be able to stop the advance of the entire zombie tide. He might as well go back to the bridge. Maybe Duan Lei could still. What can you think of? When Wang Feng returned to the bridge, the outside of the defensive wall was already unrecognizable. Trees, stones, and other debris were scattered outside the defensive wall. A gap was left on the road. Duan Lei, Lu Feng, and others strengthened it. The soldiers were already ready. How? Duan Lei was the first to ask after Wang Feng jumped onto the armored vehicle, and all the other enhancers looked at Wang Feng. Wang Feng shook his head, looked around the defensive wall and said, "There are too many, and the methods we use to attract zombies no longer work. I tried using sound and blood to lure the zombies away, but it didn't matter. Use. There's still half an hour. Wang Feng looked at the bridge and found that all the women and children had passed. Now other survivors were queuing up to cross the bridge, although these people could cross the bridge faster than the women and children. It's a lot faster, but there are also a lot more of them, and it will take at least another hour to pass them all. Duanlei nodded and looked back at Daqiao. There's not enough time. What should we do? Tang Haoshan asked aloud. It's easy. Just kill that mutated zombie. Wang Feng suddenly turned around and stared at the direction the zombie was coming from and said in a deep voice. Have you tried it just now? Tell me the process. Duanlei looked at Wang Feng and said. Wang Feng nodded. I tried. But it didn't work. That zombie was more cautious and sent several enhanced zombies to attack me in the early stage. After I killed those enhanced zombies, it found that it seemed difficult to kill me, so it no more enhanced zombies will be sent out. And after I sneak attacked it once with a bow and arrow while pretending to shoot an ordinary zombie, it distanced itself from me and let the enhanced zombies surround it, making it impossible for me to attack it again. Hearing this, Duanlei's eyes lit up. Does this mean this zombie is afraid of death? That's right, Wang Feng nodded. Duanlei lowered his head and thought for a while, then suddenly raised his head. Then wait. We can only give it a try. He looked at the enhancers around him, and then at Wang Feng. There are 2 missiles on the car. I will try this when the zombie swarm arrives. See if I can kill the mutated zombie. I guess it's terrible. That zombie is not slow, and with my previous experience of attacking it with arrows, I'm afraid it won't let the missiles get close to it. The most important thing is that the 2 missiles on the armored vehicle are ground-to-surface missiles. Air-to-air missiles have limited power. Unless they hit head-on, otherwise. Wang Feng was not optimistic about Duanlei's idea. Yes. That's why I said we would give it a try. Duanlei nodded. It would be best if we were lucky enough to kill the mutated zombie. If not, we will face 2 situations. 1. The mutant zombie was frightened by our missiles and hesitated. This can buy us enough time, because it will not know that we only have 2 missiles. 2. The same zombie is scared, but it will make other zombies attack us desperately because of fear. In this way, we will be self-defeating and lose some time. The main thing now is how timid this zombie is. If it is just normal, then it is likely to take the first approach. Wait and see for the time being. If it is extremely cowardly, then we will have to prepare for a crazy counterattack by the zombie tide after launching the missile. After finishing everything he wanted to say in one breath, Duanlei looked at the people around him again, with a questioning look in his eyes. Everyone understood that Duanlei was asking if he wanted to launch missiles. Damn it! You are dead. Do it. After a moment of silence, Tang Haoshan was the first to speak. Yes. Damn it, it might just blow up to death, and that would save us the trouble. Don't worry about it. Let's wait until it explodes. If 2 rounds are fired at the same time, I don't believe it can't be blown up to death. After Tang Haoshan spoke, the surrounding strengtheners who had been feeling aggrieved since their return spoke one after another and agreed to launch the missiles. Duanlei stretched out his hand to stop the excited enhancers, nodded and said, since everyone agrees, then we will do this for a while. As soon as the mutated zombies appear in my sight, I will launch missiles immediately, and everyone is ready to fight. If the second situation happens later. Duanlei slowly glanced at the people around him. Just try to delay it. Liza, Wang Feng frowned. Why don't you wait for the mutated zombies to enter the range before launching the missiles? Although the surface-to-air missile on the armored vehicle is a small vehicle-mounted missile, its effective range reaches 20 kilometers. Even if it is launched now, there is no problem at all. First, I can't confirm the target, and the onboard radar can't display the location of the zombies. Second, we need to let the zombies know that it was us who launched the attack, so the zombies will be afraid of us. Duanlei looked at Wang Feng calmly. Wang Feng thought for a moment, then quickly ran into the armored vehicle compartment, and then ran out immediately, holding a walkie-talkie and a small signal transmitter in his hand. Liza, track this signal. If I say launch missiles at the signal source, and shoot out 2 missiles at a time. Wang Fengjiang has opened the signal transmitter in his hand, and the red dot flashing signal transmitter is pointed at Duanlei Huang. After a moment, he rushed towards the direction of the corpse tide. Madman, Duanlei, Lu Feng, and Tang Haoshan shouted together, but Wang Feng ignored them and disappeared from everyone's sight in the blink of an eye. I'll help him. Lu Feng watched Wang Feng disappear and then turned to Duanlei and chased after Wang Feng. I'll go too. Tang Haoshan followed closely. With these 2 people taking the lead, several other third-level enhancers also responded and chased after them. Everyone come back, Duanlei shouted. Hearing Duanlei's voice, all the enhancers, including Lu Feng and Tang Haoshan, stopped and turned to look at Duanlei. Although they were all third-level enhancers, Duanlei himself was only a second-level enhancer. Intensifiers, but because firstly it was obvious that Duanlei was with Wang Feng, and secondly, even Lu Feng, the leader among the third-level intensifiers, had always obeyed Duanlei's advice, so these intensifiers did not consciously regard Duanlei as their master. Lei Dang became the commander. Just let the madman go on his own, you won't be able to help much if you go, Duanlei said while looking in the direction Wang Feng was leaving. Do you know what he is going to do? Asked the nearest enhancer. Duanlei nodded. Missile guide? He must have gone to the front of the zombie group, tied the signal transmitter on an arrow and shot it to the mutated zombies. At the same time, he asked me to launch missiles to track the signal. In this case, even if the second kind occurs under the circumstances, the zombie should also regard the missile attack as being launched by a madman. When those zombies chase the madman, they should be able to divert the tide of zombies and buy us more time to cross the bridge. Then he is not very dangerous. Lu Feng's expression changed. Duanlei nodded, that's right. But you can't help if you go there. There are too many zombies. The madman here is the fastest. His own words shouldn't be a big problem. At least if he wants to escape, the zombies it's definitely impossible to catch up, as long as he doesn't go too deep into the corpse group. I'm going down to prepare to launch missiles, Lao Lu. You take someone over to check the situation. Remember to stay away and don't get close. If the corpses are coming this way, come back and tell us so that we can prepare in advance. After Lei finished speaking, he went directly into the car and sat in the cab, staring at the radar display. Lu Feng looked at Tang Haoshan. Tang Haoshan nodded and turned around and shouted, I and Lao Lu will go take a look. You guys should be prepared here. The zombies are still coming. After saying that, the 2 of them jumped towards the place where Wang Feng disappeared. Chased after him. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 68. Wang Feng came to the front of the zombies again. The zombies did not react to his visit and continued to move towards the bridge. Only the enhanced zombies that were originally scattered around the mutant zombies gathered together again and surrounded the mutant zombies. Wang Feng sneered, pulled out an arrow from his back, tied the small signal transmitter to the tip of the arrow, and then took out 2 arrows in the space, bent the bow and shot them at the mutant zombies. The 2 arrows were in front, and the arrow with the signal transmitter was behind. The 3 arrows flew towards the mutant zombies. The mutant zombie stretched out 2 claws like cattail leaves, and slapped the 2 arrows in front of it from the left and right. However, the 3rd arrow with the signal transmitter seemed to have lost its aim. When it approached the mutant zombie, it suddenly fell down and nailed an ordinary zombie in front of the mutant zombie. The mutant zombie was stunned, but he didn't even look at the unlucky dead zombie. He opened his mouth and roared at Wang Feng, then continued to command the zombies to move forward. Wang Feng stared at the mutant zombie with a cold expression. When he saw that the mutant zombie was approaching the ordinary zombie that fell to the ground, he gently uttered 2 words into the intercom, "Fire." Duan lay in the armored vehicle heard it clearly and quickly pressed a red button in front of him. The missiles that had already set the target took off and flew forward like 2 fire dragons. After notifying Duan Lei to launch the missile, Wang Feng immediately raised the bow in his hand again, and a series of arrows flew towards the mutant zombies, ignoring that Wang Feng's targets this time were all the enhanced zombies surrounding the mutant zombies. Wang Feng knew that his arrows would cause limited damage to the mutant zombies at this distance, so he simply gave up attacking this guy. For a moment, the mutant zombies were in a state of chaos. Due to the distance, Wang Feng's attack did not achieve any results. Although several enhanced zombies were hit by arrows, none of them fell down because they were not hit in the head. However, Wang Feng's attack was originally intended to distract the mutant zombies to prevent them from discovering the missiles in the air too early. This trick really worked. When the 2 missiles reached the destination, they dived into the mutant zombies. Boom! Boom! With 2 earth-shaking noises, even Duan Lei and others in the distance could feel the tremors of the earth. Although it was a small vehicle-mounted surface-to-air missile, it was still a missile after all, and its power was not comparable to that of ordinary artillery shells. When the smoke and dust caused by the missiles dissipated, Wang Feng saw the scene clearly. A large pit with a diameter of 3 kilometers appeared in front of him. There were some scattered zombie meat fragments that were not vaporized in the pit, and the mutant zombies had disappeared. Wang Feng was stunned. Could it be that the mutant zombies were killed directly by the missiles? Because he had never seen the power of the surface-to-air missiles on this armored vehicle. Since the targets of air-to-air missiles are generally aircraft and missiles, they are mostly fragmentation bombs. Although they can also be used to attack ground targets, their lethality is limited. But looking at the big pit in front of him, it is enough to prove that the power of these 2 air-to-ground missiles is not worse than those vehicle-mounted ground-to-ground missiles, and the effect is even much better. Is it dead? Wang Feng stared at the zombies in front of him that were scattered by the shockwave emitted by the missile explosion, muttered to himself, and then pulled out Tiankai and rushed into the zombies. Regardless of whether the mutant zombie is dead or not, these scattered zombies in front of him must be killed, just in time to replenish some energy points for Tiankai. Wang Feng held Tiankai and wandered around in the zombies like strolling in the garden, constantly harvesting those half-dead zombies, and his path was always facing the place where the missile exploded. He wanted to see if the mutant zombie was dead or not. When Wang Feng came to the edge of the crater, he looked at the bottom of the crater and found no trace of the mutant zombie. Could it be vaporized? Wang Feng frowned. But he soon denied his idea, because Wang Feng found that the zombies within his sight began to gather, and the target was himself. Wang Feng opened his eyes and looked around. Soon, he found his target, the mutant zombie. There were only about 20 reinforced zombies around the mutant zombie, and many of them were missing arms and legs, covered with black blood and minced meat. It turned out that when the missile approached the mutant zombie just now, the mutant zombie instinctively felt the danger. It retreated while commanding all the reinforced zombies around it to block in front of it. Because the mutant zombie was very fast and had the cover of those reinforced zombies, it actually escaped the attack almost unscathed. The mutant zombies were obviously very angry at this time. They stared at Wang Feng with a pair of indigo eyes, bared their fangs and roared. Under the roar of the mutant zombies, the zombies became crazy and surrounded the center, trying to surround Wang Feng in the middle. Wang Feng flashed and rushed out of the zombie group before the zombies surrounded him. No matter how crazy the ordinary zombies were, their speed could not be increased too much. After leaving the zombie group, Wang Feng ran towards the mountains in the south. He wanted to lead the zombies away. The bridge was on the east side. If he led the zombies to the south, he could buy a lot of time for Duan Lei and his men. Moreover, the mutant zombies should have a full hatred value for him now. Use the hatred of the mutant zombies to lead the zombie tide to the mountains in the south, and then launch a gust of wind to escape back to the bridge when the time is right. This is Wang Feng's current plan. But soon Wang Feng felt something was wrong, because there were less than 10,000 zombies chasing him, and the rest of the zombies returned to their original formation and continued to move towards the bridge, and the zombies' current formation was almost a square formation. Although the missile attack just now also killed 2,000 or 3,000 ordinary zombies, this loss can be ignored for the zombie tide with a number of more than 100,000. The zombie tide of more than 100,000 formed a huge square formation, and the mutant zombies were in the center of this square formation. It seems that they knew that the previous attack came from the sky, so the enhanced zombies around the mutant zombies all looked up at the sky, and the speed of the zombie tide became much faster. At the current speed, perhaps more than 10 minutes, the zombie tide can reach the Black Dragon Bridge. It seems that this mutant zombie is much smarter than Wang Feng and Duan Lei imagined. It seems to know that the missile was not launched by Wang Feng, so it did not let all the zombies chase him as Wang Feng expected, but sent less than 1/10 of the zombies to chase Wang Feng like driving away flies. This group of about 10,000 zombies is not difficult for Wang Feng to deal with now. As long as there is enough space and time, it is not impossible to kill these 10,000 zombies, but Wang Feng cannot waste his time here. Wang Feng looked at the zombie tide and turned around and ran towards the bridge. Since the missile attack failed, there is only one way now: rely on the defense wall to block the zombies. Wang Feng also knew that the defense wall they hastily built over there might not last for 10 minutes before it would be submerged in the zombie army under this huge zombie tide, but now there is no other way, so he can only take it one step at a time. When Wang Feng returned to the defense wall, Lu Feng and Tang Haoshan had already returned before him and told Duan Lei about the situation. After Duan Lei learned that the missile attack had failed, his face did not change much. He had already made plans for the worst. Let those guys speed up the bridge. Others, check the guns and ammunition and prepare for battle. Duan Lei's light tone seemed to dilute the tense atmosphere around him. Okay. Everyone get ready. Damn it, it's finally our turn to play. Ha ha ha, a bearded third-level enhancer laughed loudly. Hee hee. I've been waiting anxiously for a long time. How about a competition later? I bet 50 cents that I will kill more than you. Bullshit. I won't bet so little, I'll bet $1. Several carefree guys shouted loudly, and the enthusiastic atmosphere also brought everyone around them up. Whether they were enhancers or ordinary people, their originally nervous emotions seemed to relax. At this time, Wang Feng happened to arrive, and all the people on the defensive wall looked at Wang Feng with admiration. Everything Wang Feng did just now had been spread by Lu Feng and Tang Haoshan, and these two guys would naturally add fuel to the fire when spreading it. So the process these guys heard was, Wang Feng single-handedly killed into the zombie group, and then threw the signal transmitter directly at the feet of the mutant zombie, and then spit at the mutant zombie with disdain, and then walked out of the zombie group in a swagger under the stunned gaze of the zombie group. Not to mention how much lethality Wang Feng's saliva has on zombies, just imagine the group of zombies are all scared silly. They stared at the madman swaggering out of the zombie group, and they didn't even dare to move the scene. Well, they are probably scared by the saliva. But after all, this process was told by two third-level enhancers. Is it necessary for third-level enhancers to lie to us? Of course not. And that madman with the bow and arrow is a legendary evolver. You know, evolvers have superpowers. Maybe their superpowers are saliva attacks? In short, under the vigorous promotion of Lu Feng and Tang Haoshan, Wang Feng has been successfully made into a great person who can drown thousands of zombies with just a mouthful of saliva. This kind of person seems to have a title before the end of the world, Keyboard Warrior. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzu. Chapter 69. Poor Wang Feng didn't know that he had become another hero who could be called a hero after Batman and Spider-Man. He returned to the defense wall and learned that Duan Lei already knew what happened before. He didn't say much nonsense. He stood directly in front of the armored vehicle and silently waited for the arrival of the zombie tide. The zombie tide arrived faster than Wang Feng expected. In about a cigarette, the endless zombie tide had already appeared in their sight. Everyone pay attention, try to save bullets, wait until the zombies are closer before firing, and shoot the closest ones. The third-level enhancers pay attention to support, Duan Lei shouted loudly after the zombie tide appeared. Unknowingly, he has become the recognized commander of this battle. After hearing Duan Lei's shouting, everyone behind the defense wall suddenly became alert. It's strange to say that when they just learned that there was a zombie tide coming, their hearts were full of fear, and they just wanted to leave here as soon as possible. That's why they were so panicked when they fled before, and nearly half of the people in almost every camp were abandoned because they couldn't keep up with the main force. Now, they looked at the people around them, whether they knew them or not, they would smile and say hello to each other. One said, "Come on," the other said, "Yeah. Fight," then they laughed at each other. At this moment, the previous fear had been thrown away by them. They just wanted to follow their comrades and fight these zombies. Their transformation was not only because of Wang Feng's words, but also because of their own environment. When everyone around them was thinking about escaping, the panic atmosphere was enough to defeat anyone's courage and make them feel fear involuntarily. And when someone began to organize and prepare to fight against the zombies, when they were surrounded by a group of emotional main fighters, the blood and energy that had been hidden deep in their hearts for a long time and almost wiped out began to gradually erupt. When they made up their minds to fight the zombies, they found that when the terrifying zombie tide appeared in front of them, they did not become weak and pale as they imagined. They were still able to chat and laugh without any care, and bet with their comrades around them on how many zombies they could kill before they died. Perhaps, people in the end times are not particularly afraid of death. What they are more afraid of is the loneliness before death, the powerlessness, the despair and fear that comes from the bones when they know that they are about to become food and will become a monster exactly the same as the disgusting zombies that killed them. Duan Lei sat in the shooting position, looking at the guys around him who were chatting and laughing and bragging to each other, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Just an hour ago, these people's faces were still a combination of fear and panic, resentment, but now, that feeling has long disappeared. If he hadn't been here all along, he would never have believed that these two expressions would appear on a person's face. Looking at Wang Feng standing proudly with a bow in front of him, Duan Lei couldn't help but shout, "Hey! Crazy!" Wang Feng turned around with a questioning look in his eyes. Duan Lei didn't say anything, but just nodded to the people on both sides of him. Wang Feng looked in the direction Duan Lei pointed, and he naturally saw the enhancers and ordinary people who were chatting as relaxedly as if they were drinking tea at home in the face of the surging corpse tide. He even saw Lu Feng arguing with an ordinary person with a red face and thick neck. Wang Feng was stunned for a moment, and then a smile appeared on his face. "I now find these guys seem to be quite cute. Later, let's try to let them survive more." Duan Lei's voice became smaller and smaller, and when he said the last word, it was almost inaudible. Wang Feng nodded silently, then turned back to face the zombies, holding the longbow tightly in his hand. Duan Lei behind him had the same expression as him. Both of them were thinking quickly, trying to find a way to effectively attack the zombies in front of them. But at present, their biggest killer, 2 surface-to-air missiles have been used up, and the impact on the zombies is almost zero. Now their strongest firepower may be the 6-wheeled machine gun, but the 6-wheeled machine gun currently has less than 6,000 rounds of bullets. Even if its firepower is strong enough, it is impossible to solve the crisis at hand. Wang Feng took a deep breath, he activated the Sky Eye, staring at the enhanced zombie hidden in the center of the zombie tide. The enhanced zombie seemed to be aware of it and stared at Wang Feng's direction, with a gleam in his eyes, and a distorted face, and roared at Wang Feng. At this time, the zombies had gradually entered their range, and some people who couldn't hold their breath had already started firing. As they fired, other people continued to join in, and soon, the sound of gunfire like popping beans became a cacophony. As the gunfire continued, the zombies in front of the zombie tide fell one after another, but the speed of killing was far behind the speed of the zombie tide, so as time went by, the zombie tide was getting closer and closer to the defense wall. Next, looking at the zombie tide getting closer and closer, Lu Feng threw the submachine gun in his hand to a first-level enhancer beside him, and then threw the 2 magazines on his body over, then drew out the long knife behind him, took a few steps forward, and chopped at the zombies in front of him. With Lu Feng taking the lead, the third-level enhancers also threw their firearms to the people around them, then picked up various cold weapons and rushed into the group of corpses. Wang Feng, who was standing in front of the armored vehicle, had already started his killing. In front of him, zombie corpses had piled up like a mountain. Relying on his own speed, Wang Feng held Apocalypse and kept rushing left and right among the corpses. Keep harvesting zombies one after another. What made him depressed was that the mutated zombie started to stop there when it was about 3 kilometers away from the defensive wall. All the enhanced zombies around it also stayed with it, only the seemingly endless ordinary zombies are constantly swarming towards the defensive wall. Looking at the precarious defensive wall and the 30,000 to 40,000 survivors who had not yet crossed the bridge, Wang Feng suddenly dodged to the armored vehicle. Because he was defending in front of the armored vehicle, Doomsday did not use the 6-wheel machine gun. Liza, you go down and drive. Let's see if we can kill that big guy. Wang Feng pointed at the mutated zombie and shouted to Doomsday. Okay, Doomsday didn't say much, and entered the carriage with a short body, leaving the position of operating the 6-barreled machine gun to Wang Feng. Wang Feng sat in the seat in front of Doomsday, stretched out his hand to pull the trigger of the 6-barreled machine gun, and pressed the firing button towards the tide of corpses in front of him. The barrel of the 6-barreled machine gun quickly rotated, 1.5 seconds later. Afterwards, a deafening sound sounded. The 6-barreled machine gun began to roar. It spit out tongues of fire and tore all the zombies in front of it into pieces. Black blood rain accompanied the broken limbs and broken arms. Doomsday seized the opportunity and stepped on the accelerator. The armored vehicle it rushed into the surging tide of corpses like a sharp arrow off the string. Lao Lu. They are going to kill that big guy, you guys hold on. I'm going to help. When Tang Haoshan saw the armored vehicle rushing into the corpse tide, he immediately understood Wang Feng's intention. After shouting to Lu Feng, he ran a few steps. He jumped behind the armored vehicle, and chased after him along the bloody path opened by the armored vehicle in the tide of corpses. Damn it! I'm also at the 3rd level. Why do you want me to stay? Lu Feng gritted his teeth and rushed out after Tang Haoshan. Ha 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 ha. That's right. I'm also a 3rd level warrior, so of course I have to show off. The bearded 3rd level enhancer also laughed loudly, then jumped up high, entered the group of corpses, and chased the armored vehicle. Immediately afterwards, 7 or 8 figures also left the defensive wall and rushed into the corpse group. The 3rd level enhancers present chose to rush into the corpse group and join this decapitation operation that seemed to have little hope. They all know that it will be much safer to stay on the defensive wall. At least here they only have to face the zombies head on. Once they enter the zombie group, they will be attacked from all directions, even if they are 3rd level enhancers. If you are bitten by a zombie, you will also be infected, and then turn into that disgusting monster. But at this moment, they seem to suddenly transform into saviors. No one thought about what they would do if they were bitten. They only had one thought now: follow that armored vehicle and kill that son of a bitch. Seeing these third-level enhancers rushing into the corpses, the people who stayed on the defensive wall, whether they were enhancers or ordinary people, were all infected by the tragic aura when they rushed into the corpses. And for a moment, there was a loud sound of gunfire. Ah! A cry that resounded throughout the sky came from the mouths of these people. At this moment, no one worried about the lack of ammunition. They pressed the trigger to the end, firing countless bullets towards the tide of corpses poured out, and the distance between the tide of corpses and the defensive wall was forcibly increased. Those third-level enhancers quickly gathered together. They gathered behind the armored vehicle, forming a circular formation, and kept chasing the armored vehicle. Wang Feng soon discovered the situation behind him, and he continued to face the armored vehicle. The zombie wave in front fired at them, while turning back and shouting, "What are you doing here? Everyone go back. Don't come over. Leave us alone. You keep moving forward. When there are no more bullets, we will help you clear the way," Tang Haoshan shouted loudly, and then continued to wave the machete in his hand to kill the zombies around him. At this time, they had rushed into the corpse group for more than a kilometer, and were still more than halfway away from the mutated zombie, but the 6-barreled machine gun's ammunition was running out. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 70. Wang Feng removed the empty belt and replaced it with the last bullet chain. After thinking again and again, he still pressed the button to fire bullets at the zombies in front of him. Wang Feng once thought about waiting a little longer, and then using the machine gun to kill the mutant zombie directly when the distance was close enough, but now the mutant zombie has begun to notice their team trying to approach it, and the zombies around are desperately rushing towards them, trying to drown them in the zombie tide. The only thing they can effectively kill zombies now is this machine gun, but at present, there are only the 1,000 bullets on the last belt. Not to mention using it to shoot the mutant zombie, it is far from enough to even open the road to the mutant zombie in the zombie tide. "Get in the car," Wang Feng turned his head and shouted to the third-level enhancers behind the car. Now that they have gone deep into the zombie tide, it is impossible for them to retreat, so they might as well fight together. Hearing Wang Feng's voice, Lu Feng hesitated for a moment and then shouted, "Everyone get in the car, let's go do that big one together." After saying that, he jumped onto the roof of the armored vehicle first, and the other enhancers also jumped up and came to the armored vehicle. "Liza! Full speed ahead," Wang Feng roared, and then aimed the machine gun at the zombies in front of the armored vehicle and fired at them. Under the huge kinetic energy of the 6-barrel machine gun, a bloody path was cleared in front of the armored vehicle. Duanlei did not hesitate and rushed over before the zombies around him closed up. When it was still 800 or 900 meters away from the mutant zombies, the armored vehicle stopped. It could no longer move forward. The surrounding zombies had squeezed it firmly here, and the machine gun had run out of ammunition more than 10 seconds ago and stopped roaring. After the armored vehicle stopped, Wang Feng pulled out the apocalypse, jumped into the zombies, waved his arms and harvested zombies while moving towards the mutant zombies. Lu Feng and the others also jumped up without being called, and landed behind Wang Feng. Under Wang Feng's leadership, they approached the mutant zombies with difficulty. When Wang Feng and his men advanced towards the mutant zombies, the defense wall was already in danger, and the ammunition had been exhausted. Whether it was the enhancers or ordinary people, they all held cold weapons to resist the zombies' attacks. From time to time, some people screamed and were dragged into the zombies by the zombies that climbed up the defense wall and torn into pieces in an instant. However, these people seemed to have been killed with bloodshot eyes. They had forgotten their fear. They roared desperately and swung their weapons to chop down the zombies in front of them. Some who were bitten by zombies jumped into the zombies and swung their weapons desperately until they fell down. As if they were infected by them, thousands of survivors who were waiting to cross the bridge also came again and joined their battle, and used their flesh and blood to push back the gaps that had been broken. The women and children who had already passed by on the other side were crying when they saw the tragic scene here. They knelt on the ground, put their hands together, bowed their heads and prayed to the gods and Buddhas they believed in, praying that they would open their eyes of mercy, display their supreme power, and save those warriors who were fighting for the survival of mankind. Gradually, more and more people began to turn around and leave the bridge that was close at hand and was once regarded as their only hope for survival, and ran to the defense wall that they were extremely afraid of before, to face the zombie tide that made them fear and tremble. The humanity that had gradually disappeared since the end of the world suddenly woke up at this moment. They suddenly found that under certain circumstances, death was not so terrible. You could even face it with pride. As if sensing their own crisis, the zombies at this time changed the direction of attack and gathered towards Wang Feng and others who were in the center of the zombies. The pressure on the defense wall, which had already reversed the situation due to the addition of fresh forces, was greatly reduced. Chase. Help them share some of the pressure. Seeing the zombies on the defense wall turn around and leave, Taizu jumped out first. He waved a Miao Dao in his hand and shouted, and then chased the retreating zombies. Go. Kill one more. Chase. Damn. I'm risking my life. Haha. These sons of bitches are scared too. Don't let them go back so easily, kill them. Countless people crossed the defense wall and chased the zombies. The zombies at the back fell like wheat. Whether they were enhancers or ordinary people, they rushed to kill, and at the same time, they were still shouting numbers. 13, 14, 15, 21, 22, 23, 30, haha. I killed 30 zombies. Even some ordinary survivors who had never killed a zombie before, now seemed to be possessed by the god of war, madly hacking and killing the zombies in front of them. They suddenly found that the zombies they had always feared were actually so vulnerable. Wang Feng and his men didn't know the situation on the other side of the defense wall, and they had no time to look after that side at the moment. They only knew that they had to kill the mutated zombies. If they didn't kill this big guy, their troops that had gone deep into the zombie tide would definitely die. Even Wang Feng was not sure he could escape unscathed, and Wang Feng hadn't even thought about how to leave here safely. Kill. Seeing that the distance was almost right, Wang Feng roared, leaped high, and rushed towards the mutant zombie, holding the apocalypse in his hand behind his back, ready to attack. Ah! The mutant zombie looked at the little Wang Feng flying towards him from mid-air, opened his two palm leaf-like claws on both sides of his body, and opened his mouth to roar at Wang Feng. While the mutant zombie roared, the enhanced zombies around him blocked the mutant zombie, but because the mutant zombie was tall, his upper body was still exposed. Bang! A dull gunshot sounded, and the mutant zombie instinctively tilted his head when he heard the gunshot, and a bullet flew past his ear. The one who fired the gun was Duan Lei, who stayed on the armored vehicle. After the armored vehicle stopped, Wang Feng and all the enhancers on the roof jumped into the zombie group and killed the mutant zombies. Duan Lei left the cab, picked up the sniper rifle inside and got out from the shooting position. Because of the command of the mutant zombies, the ordinary zombies did not attack the armored vehicle. Duan Lei aimed at the mutant zombies with a sniper rifle, but he did not shoot, waiting for the best opportunity to make a shot. Just now, Wang Feng jumped up and killed the mutant zombies. The mutant zombies' attention was all attracted by Wang Feng. Duan Lei took this opportunity to aim at the mutant zombies' eyes and pulled the trigger. Unexpectedly, the mutant zombies dodged it. Duan Lei hit the roof of the car in annoyance, then pulled the bolt to eject the shell and loaded another bullet, and aimed the muzzle at the mutant zombies again. At this time, Wang Feng had already pounced in front of the mutant zombie. The mutant zombie's two huge claws crossed to grab Wang Feng in the air, but unexpectedly, Wang Feng's body fell before he reached it. Then, with the swing of the dagger, the heads of 4 enhanced zombies were cut in half by him. It turned out that Wang Feng's target of attack this time was not the mutant zombie, but the enhanced zombies around it. After killing 4 enhanced zombies, Wang Feng flashed to the right and killed 3 more enhanced zombies. Unfortunately, these enhanced zombies were all around it because of the mutant zombies' order and dared not move, which made it easier for Wang Feng to kill. Roar, the mutant zombie was angry, staring at Wang Feng with indigo eyes and roaring, and the enhanced zombies around him suddenly jumped up and pounced on Wang Feng. Quick! Let's block him and let him kill this big guy. Tang Haoshan had arrived at this time, but he did not attack the mutant zombies, but killed the ordinary zombies that were mobilized by the mutant zombies. From Wang Feng's actions, he knew that Wang Feng should be a speed-type evolver. If these ordinary zombies were allowed to rush in, the fighting space left for Wang Feng in the middle would become smaller and smaller, and Wang Feng would also lose his speed advantage. The other third-level enhancers who arrived also understood this, so they formed a big circle and surrounded the mutant zombies and Wang Feng in the middle. Fortunately, the mutant zombies had been walking on the road. With the help of the ditches on both sides of the road, it was much easier for them to form this circle. This is also because the mutant zombies always keep a certain distance from those ordinary zombies, as if it is a kind of pride of the superiors. Except for those enhanced zombies, other zombies will keep a distance of more than 3 meters from the mutant zombies. At this time, the mutant zombie may be because the situation is urgent and it has been attacked, so it began to mobilize those ordinary zombies to support itself. After Wang Feng killed 7 enhanced zombies, he quickly looked at the enhancers around him. Fortunately, there were no losses of third-level enhancers so far, but their situation was not very good now, because the zombies were too dense, and there were only 11 enhancers in total, forming such a large circle, and each of them was under great pressure. Quick battle and quick decision. Wang Feng made a decision in his heart that he could not drag it on. The physical strength of the enhancers was also limited. If they consumed too much physical strength, even if he could kill this mutant zombie, their fate would still be to be swallowed by the zombies. Wang Feng waved Apocalypse and shot the 2 enhanced zombies that rushed towards him directly in the head, and the mutant zombie followed closely behind them. It took advantage of the 2 enhanced zombies to block Wang Feng's sight and rushed over, and its 2 huge claws grabbed Wang Feng's head.